Hello and welcome to Brexit, the Final Countdown. We have 169 days to go until the 31st of October. We have 8 days until the EU elections. We have 19 days until June 3rd, which is a very exciting week. We have 301 days into the longest parliamentary session since the English Civil War.
And doesn't it just feel like it?
Doesn't it feel like it? We're only 21 seconds into this podcast. And we're 4 ovens away from being totally over Tory leaders and their wives, aren't we?
Indeed, yes.
Guys, we've got lots to talk about.
We do.
As ever, this week I'm joined by the wonderful Thomas Hunt, video news editor for theexpress.co.uk.
Hello.
And a welcome return to our podcast from Paul Baldwin, head of news.
Hello.
And hello to all the viewers. So excited to be live. I'm, of course, Rebecca Hutson. Let's do this. News klaxon. Last night there was an announcement. Downing Street are bringing forward the very long-awaited Withdrawal Agreement Bill, known commonly as the WAB, which will basically put Theresa May's withdrawal agreement into law. This is incredibly exciting. This is it. This is the pivotal week in Brexit that we've been talking about for so long. Am I right, chaps?
Let me just give you an illusion, which I was thinking about on the train this morning, that the Catholics used to have a method of contraception.
Oh, God.
Called... No, I'm a Catholic, right? But the Catholics used to have a method of contraception called the rhythm method. And it was basically a withdrawal agreement. And the thing with that was that didn't work either. Because, bottom line, neither party really wanted it. So it didn't work. And this is exactly the same position we find ourselves in with the actual withdrawal agreement. That it's a fudge, it's a compromise, it's clumsy, and it pleases basically nobody at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Like lots of relationships with Catholics. Okay. Tom, so hang on, so we're saying what? Not going to pass, I'm guessing.
It's not a cat and hell's chance.
Do you not think there might be some Labour leavers who are under so much pressure from their constituencies that they've just got to back this? And even though there might not be a cross-party deal, do you think they want to keep their jobs? They're about to get slaughtered in the EU elections 8 days away. Is there any chance that a Caroline Flint and a insert other...
There aren't enough of them.
Oh, really?
The numbers do not... I mean, I was saying to Paul slightly earlier that the only thing I think she has planned is to try and hide this in news of the week. So
what, the big week? Trump is here?
There's the Trump visit, the Peterborough by-election on the Thursday, and she's going to try and shoehorn her deal back in that time frame.
Right. Love Island might have started by then, actually, mightn't it?
That could swing it, actually.
So we'll all be preoccupied, thank heaven.
But it makes absolute... The Stephen Barclay last night, Brexit secretary, was on to say a nice impassioned speech.
Barclay's speech, it was exactly what we all hate about politics right now, which was he just stood there and he'd been briefed to say this thing, which was Brexit, we're all about delivering certainty, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the question was, it was irrelevant. He was going to say that. And you just stood there and thought, what is certain? If the withdrawal agreement got through, for example, what would be certain? Where is the certainty for business or anyone else in the EU basically running our lives without us having a say in any of it for at least 2 years, maybe more, maybe endless, who knows?
What are the DUP saying? Are they saying no thanks? But no thanks?
Nigel Dodd said that if nothing has changed regarding the backstop, which Barclay made last night completely clear that they're going to go ahead with the vote even if nothing has changed from the previous 3 occasions they brought it forward, then Nigel Dodd said no thank you, we will not be backing this because the backstop and the issue with Ireland stands. And it does just... Barclay yesterday repeating the same thing we've heard for the last 2 years. Is just...
We've said this before, but positions are entrenched and the chances of anyone changing them right at the last minute are not only slim to nil, but it would almost be, well, if you'd have had this position 3 years ago, we might have had a chance. But right now, it's just adding insult to injury. I was reading this morning that Yvette Cooper's constituency, which is Pontefract, which is a traditional Labour constituency, 76% of her constituents voted Brexit, and she is not carrying out their wishes. That's not what politicians are there for. And if she isn't going to change, even though her position at the next election must be really, really under pressure, if she really is going against 76% of her voters, then who's really going to change their position on Brexit at this late stage of the game? Nobody.
to play devil's advocate, the only possible... I mean, you can't possibly... With the EU elections, she could possibly have done so badly that she thinks Tories will panic and back her because they think they're all going to be out of a job at the next general election.
Right.
But how they would have come to that point, I have no idea. And maybe it is just that she realises this is her last throw of the dice. It's the only thing she's got left. She can't call a general election. She can't admit to having a second referendum. So
myself and Tom have slight mixed feelings about the EU elections as well, in that I think Tom sees it as a sort of tacit second referendum.
Yeah.
And that everyone will go out and rush out and vote against the two leading parties who've left us in this position in the first place. I take the other view that why would you bother? Of all the elections in history, this one is so utterly meaningless and insulting that why would you even bother turning up at... And I speak as a man who has never, ever, ever missed a chance to vote, because I think it's a massively important thing. I even said a couple of weeks ago, I think it should be the law that we all have to vote. But I just don't care about this one. Why would I? It's an insult to me.
Well, there seems a lot of momentum around some of it, doesn't it? I mean, we always talk about Farage on this podcast, and we will get to that. But I mean, he's just, there is a lot of excitement around these EU elections. I mean, Change UK has kind of fallen to pieces, sadly, hasn't it? And they're now not even talking to the People's Vote people, which does sound balmy.
As we were coming in to the podcast, an update came that a Change UK, someone is going to move to Lib Dem, so they're already losing people that they have nominated.
They've only been around for a week. Oh my goodness!
There's only one game in town, and we all know who it is. It's not even what it is; it's who it is.
Yeah,
it's Farage. It's not even his party. It's not even the people behind him. It's just him. Well, it's cult of personality in that respect, but also a guy who is seen to shoot from the hip, speak from the heart, do things that professional politicians are not doing.
There are some lovely little tidbits about Farage knocking around this morning. Did you know that he's getting up at 5 a.m. to have a walk before each day of campaigning?
That does not sound
like also
the Farage that we all know.
Yeah, he's still enjoying a bottle of Rioja after every rally, though, but it's I don't know.
He's kicked the beer. And did we know that Elizabeth Hurley once told him that she has dreams about him? I mean, these are...
I think that says more about Elizabeth Hurley than Nigel.
I mean, incredible. I mean, his power truly knows no bounds, does it?
Indeed.
If Elizabeth Hurley is dreaming about you. That's a lovely write-through in the Telegraph this morning. I just thought was fab. Ollie Robbins is obviously still over in Brussels. He was there yesterday, he's there today. Could he not be are we not trying to maybe insert a sort of some wording around a customs union? Is that what he could be doing? He's also everyone's favourite asylum seeker, right? Did you see him on the Brexit Behind Closed Doors asking for a passport? I know you've watched it because we told you to watch it yesterday. Did you watch it or no? Do you have iPlayer on your phone? Oh, you didn't watch it. That's greatly disappointing.
My daughter needed help with her GCSE revision last night, to be fair. So
what on earth did you help her with? Revisionism, maybe. A different thing. So he's there. So is it all just part of the play where we go to Brussels and we pretend we're demanding stuff and whatever? Like, what is he doing?
He has gone to appease people who think nothing is happening, or know that nothing is happening with the cross-party talks, and it's a little show to say, oh look, but Brussels didn't even know he was coming. He turned up.
And they didn't know.
Tom's absolutely spot on. He's just in a holding pattern. He's just there to be seen that we've got a guy there, but he's doing nothing. And it made me laugh. Last night, the talks, the cross-party talks last night, we described as useful and constructive. Now, I think that absolutely redefines what the phrase useful and constructive means. It's like, to me, what is useful? A useful and constructive talk would be me and Tom in the pub, and me saying to Tom, what do you fancy? And Tom saying, I'll have a pint of Peroni, please. And I go and get 2 pints of Peroni, sit down at the table. That's a useful and constructive talk, right? Imagine, I'm out with Jeremy Corbyn, say, and I say, Jezza, what do you fancy? And he says, do you know what, Paul? Between you and me, I'd quite like a London Pride, but my friends might think that was a bit anti-European. So maybe if I get half a London Pride and half a Peroni in the same glass, what about that? And at this point, I'm saying, Jezza, you're a lunatic. I'm never going out with you again.
Full of all these similes. Was it English literature that you were helping with
last night? It was English literature. That is the GCSE of the day. Yeah.
Okay, so Yes.
I was just the only thing to bring it back to the documentary yesterday, that it is all on Guy Verhofstadt, who is
What a man.
candidate to replace Juncker at the moment, and it has very much been an interesting insight into the amount of alcohol consumed.
It's incredible.
After negotiations.
His capacity for drinking wine rivals yours, Paul.
Well,
the terrible
that's
jokes.
obviously to be admired. Yeah.
The terrible jokes that they make
At our
across the
expense.
board. Yes, and the fact that they have laughed non-stop at people like Ollie Robbins
Yeah.
and Dominic Raab and now Stephen Barclay, because they even say what you are claiming goes against Theresa May. So are you sure this is what you want to say? And then they backtrack and come in. We actually approached Dominic Raab yesterday because he was not shown in a very favourable light.
I mean,
in an
who
extract
was?
from Barnier. And Dominic Raab came back because it went that Barnier was negotiating with Raab, and Raab said, give us this or else. And apparently Barnier said, oh, Theresa May would never dare speak to me like that. And if you go down this line, we're just going to turn around and say, no, thank you, and you're gone. And apparently Raab turns around and says, oh, okay, I'm sorry, let's continue these talks. We took this to Raab yesterday, and he came back and said at no point did he flinch in the face of EU negotiations. And a friend of Dominic Raab's came to us and said that he has always stood up for what he feels is right for Britain. And it was pretty much a pre-leadership election.
I mean, everything is a pre-leadership election
preamble, but
at the moment.
And I think whatever history is written in 20, 30 years' time, people will be laughing non-stop about these deep negotiations that we have all tried to have the peek behind the curtain for the last 2 years, 3 years. And actually, it's been largely a complete and utter farce.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely true. And I was thinking as well today that the fact that whatever is going on right now, we're getting snippets, little tiny nuggets from bits of corners of Whitehall and stuff like that. And where we are and what we're doing should be absolutely out there all the time. And we just don't know. What's been going on in the talks, don't really know. What's been going on in Brussels, we don't really know, and we should know. But I think there's a kind of deliberate omerta going on at the moment, that if we don't talk about this, it worked a little, well, it definitely started just before the local elections. Let's not talk about it and it might go away. And it's just shockingly bad politics and shockingly bad democracy.
And to bring us right back round to the Withdrawal Agreement Bill, that is, I think, honestly, let's not talk about it. Let's put it back to the MPs and let's hope that Trump and everything else covers it up, or that she might be looking at it or have been told by whips that so-and-so has an engagement with the US Embassy at this, and they might be trying to sort of whittle down the Brexiteers in the Tory party and them not actually be present for the vote. So
Spectacular.
But that is honestly it. There is no secret. There's no great plan that she's about to.
I think
pull
it's
out
worth
the hat.
looking at the Withdrawal Bill as well, broadly, what it is. It's a huge document. It's 599 pages long. And it basically says right there in black and white that for 21 months at least, best part of 2 years, and probably a great deal longer, we will be at the behest of the EU. It'll be the polar opposite of what people voted for. And it could go on indefinitely.
Yeah.
So we will have no power in the EU, but we will be to do their bidding. And to be honest, why would anyone at that point in the EU help the nation who wants to get out, is desperate to get out? And also, this is another thing, right? After the back end of next week, we'll have 71 brand new MEPs in an election nobody wants, and we never expected to be in. Now, those 71 EPs will almost certainly be 71 EPs who will make it their job to stymie anything going through the European Parliament and to upset and cause as much trouble as possible for the European Parliament. It will be a whole new ballgame for the EU, and also that's only the British MEPs, and that's a tenth of the Parliament. But there's also the similar people, populists as we call them, in Italy, in France, and across Europe, who will be deliberately trying to upset the EU and stop it from doing its work. It's going to be a whole new thing, a whole new ballgame, and I don't know how it's going to play out, but it will not make the EU feel warm towards us.
No,
That's for sure.
Yeah, the temperature's cooled, don't you think?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so we're thinking she's not going to get it through. The cross-party talks are a waste of time, and all this sort of scurrying off to Brussels is just more of the grand show at the expense of the British taxpayer. So it's like we need a Brexit timeline or something. What, Thomas, maybe, and Paul, what happens? What actually will happen then? Come on.
I can show...
Tom's done the Brexit timeline, and it looks like a plate of spaghetti's just fallen onto his paper.
I can show those watching on YouTube the mad working.
This is the high tech levels we work.
And for the thousands of people listening, Thomas, maybe you could describe what you see.
So I've pretty much tried to scribble down what options or what the next 9 months to a year could look like.
Okay.
We know that from the 3rd to the 7th of June, that she's bringing the meaningful vote back. If that passes, I think the UK leaves the EU with a deal. Highly unlikely.
Pigs flying at that point.
So if it fails, I think we are then to the point where Theresa May clings on and tries to continue cross-party talks, or Theresa May is removed by the Tory party, who could do it via changing the rules in the 1922 committee.
There's a meeting tomorrow, right?
Yeah. Which is probably most likely, or she could resign. I think if she's gone this far,
Mr. May wants her to resign, doesn't he?
He seems desperate.
He's
for
just
her
like,
to
come
resign.
on, let's just go on hold.
It's
spend all my money. What's he a bank? What is he, a hedge funder? Funder?
He's technically, I think, retired
I
now.
think
No, he's not.
He's
What
been
is he?
full-time.
A full-time first
agony
husband,
aunt.
agony aunt. I hope he massages her feet. But they're loaded, aren't they? It's just go on a nice holes or something.
Well, I mean,
she should go back to buying Burberry trousers.
Yes,
she's not been able to wear those.
Skipping
for a while.
through wheat fields.
Darling.
The spin-off, if she stays, unlikely, and the continued cross-party talks, is then she will probably have to make a promise of a second referendum or a customs union pledge to win over Labour. Mm-hmm. But then she fully knows that if that deal then went through, it would just be seen as a Labour Brexit.
Right.
And she would then, and Tories would most likely lose whatever next general election.
Okay. Hope you're all following this.
If she remains, if she goes, we then have the Tory leadership contest.
Yes.
So
let's talk about that and the runners and riders. Where are we?
We have, so they tend to, the last one took 10 days, but that was because Andrea Leadsom pulled out after the awkward interview with the Times about
being a mum.
That
was bad, wasn't it?
And how that
played.
But normally, having looked at the past 3 or 4, they tend to average about 9 weeks.
Okay.
So this isn't a quick fix that we turn around and Brexit is sorted. So we have probably, I was looking through the numbers earlier, I think we have the largest set of potential candidates ever in a Tory leadership.
How many ovens do you have, just quickly, actually?
Do you know what? I felt a bit embarrassed because I've only got 2.
Oh, only 2. So I don't think you qualify, actually, as leadership
No,
material.
absolutely not.
Do you have an island?
I was ashamed.
in the kitchen.
I'm about to have an island.
Oh,
moving
gosh.
house.
Oh, okay. Well, so this is like when Boris stopped eating chorizo to lose weight. You're kind of doing this stuff to. Okay, fine.
Do you have Emma Bridgewater mugs?
No, we don't. We
and there always needs like something vaguely patriotic, like a tea cozy with the Union Jack on or something, don't you? Or a keep calm and carry on. Like you need something that nods to the war. Okay, we can work on your kitchen.
Me.
So everyone. You. Oh my God. Okay, so we have everyone with a kitchen or not is up for this. You can have stables. Who was the one with the stables? The one you like, Rory Stewart.
Yes, who's probably the most Tory-esque candidate of the lot. I think his background is very much, but he's one who's actually, we'd like to highlight previous businessman or whatever. Yeah. He's actually had quite an interesting background in that he walked through the Middle East.
He's the walker, isn't he? Yeah. But like Eton, no, and like Oxford, no. No, that's good. He does like shepherd's pie, though.
I think whoever they end up voting for will basically be Ian Duncan Smith 2, a holding pattern, a non-entity in the grand scheme of the history of the Tory party.
That's not a very nice way to describe Liz Truss. Did you not see how well-styled she was in the Mail over the weekend?
There will be there will be a non-entity, and there will be ultimately probably no power if it continues the way it's going. So there'll be a person in opposition for a bit.
But doesn't it depend how they get in? I was trying to think earlier about if it comes to it, there are going to be old Cameron, Osborne Tories backing a Remain candidate.
And who are our kind of sovereigns? Amber Rudd. Come on, Amber. I want to see her kitchen. So does producer Packwood. Don't we? She's the only lady whose kitchen we haven't seen.
If the full list comes out, and I think we could in the way that Jeremy Hunt is now a Brexiteer, having voted Remain, I think we would see a couple of current cabinet members quickly switching back to old Remain allegiances.
So we've got Rudd, maybe Jeremy Hunt,
potentially Matt Hancock.
Oh yeah, we
with
saw
his
him at
power
the weekend.
pose.
Yeah, did you see that? He was like second husband, date back in, like recently divorced, back in the dating game, kind of. it was like a t-shirt and a jacket and like weird.
Similar to your holiday attire.
Yeah, no, but there was no ACD. It wasn't that rock. There was no ACDC. It was just like, yeah, we'll go to a wine bar and I won't cry about my wife, kind of thing. That's the vibe I got from him, but I'm very specific.
But so there's that side, and then potentially, and if they were clever, which they haven't been at any point in this process, so I'm not sure why I'm...
The Remainers.
The Remain candidate, they would put their support behind, because each candidate has to have the backing of other MPs in order to put themselves forward. So at the moment, we have all the interesting Brexiteers trying to divvy up and behind closed doors saying, "Oh, you'll support me, won't you? You're going to ignore Boris. He's a no-hoper." But on the Remain side, would be interesting to see if they actually get their act together and try to put their support behind one candidate.
Who do you think is the most Tory faithful, friendly Remainer?
That's the question.
Really difficult.
I'm Theresa May, probably.
Oh, good grief. Oh, good grief. No, hard.
But the Brexit side is crowded, to say the least.
Yeah,
and
it's noisy.
I cannot see... I mean, the odds show as well that the confusion around the runners... I mean, Rab, Boris Johnson, Gove... And Gove could be the one to turn.
You're obsessed with Michael Gove. Do you know that?
He is...
Every opportunity in this podcast, you have to sort of... Maybe you've got a pact going with him.
I think the problem is with all of them is that they absolutely play into the thing that the public hates, which they'll flip their politics to suit whatever sort of time of day it is. There's no real principled politicians there. And as we saw from up in Pontefract when Farage was sat down, Lord of all, he surveyed. What was interesting that was coming out of there was, we love you, Nigel, because we know where you stand on things. And you kind of do get that feeling with Farage that love him or hate him, you kind of know where he stands on things. And that's not always the case anymore. And it certainly isn't the case with most Tories. You just think, what are they thinking today? Whatever suits the public mood, whatever suits the purpose, whatever suits the, there's no... Dennis Skinner's name was shouting. Another politician, you love him or hate him, you know where he stands on things. And that's, maybe it's time for a flip back to that. It seems to be what the people want.
Are you calling for more Dennis Skinners? You're harnessing the power of this podcast.
I don't know. You could do a lot worse than the more Dennis Skinners, because you know where you stand with them. You absolutely do. Ken Clarke, right? Big old Tory beast, massively pro-Europe, which annoys a lot of Tories, but you know where you stand with him. He's never hidden that.
What's he been doing? What's he been doing this week? Drinking whiskey out of a...
Absolutely. He has been,
he's been living his best life, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, that's a gag long in the... He had
Do the
25...
gag?
Well, he 25 years ago,
Yeah.
a Chancellor of the Exchequer turned around and said, "Oh, I don't want anyone opening this whiskey that I've just banged the cork in until a Tory has been elected in the Scottish constituency." Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, we now have a Tory in the constituency, so they went and did a nice photo shoot of them having a dram of whiskey.
I'm glad everyone's hard at work during this time of national crisis.
But that is...
Jeez Louise.
And it highlights there isn't anything going on. But to bring us back to who could the candidates be, could they put, and if it is temporary, like Paul was saying, this person who is just going to come in to either get a deal done or not, could it be someone like Ken Clarke, who they say, come on, you're someone that we can rally behind. Yeah. Come in, do it for 6 months.
That would be so
Get this sorted, and then we...
I mean, in some ways it would be fantastic, but it would just add a new level surreality to this whole surreal process that we find ourselves in.
10 o'clock for PM, yes. Okay, so back to your timeline. So we would then, so say we get a new leader. They may have 4 ovens. They might not have any. They might have more of a humble microwave set up like Nigel Farage, who's been tweeting about it today. Okay, and then what do we do? Are we having what do we do? They're in. Do we have a general election? Do we have a second referendum? What happens?
So the way it works is the Tories go to vote. They then come down to 2 candidates, which are more than likely to be a Brexiteer and a Remain candidate.
Raab v Rudd,
yes,
just for the vowels.
Works well on the notice boards.
Yeah.
And if the Brexiteer gets in, they have, I reckon, 3 options. They put a no-deal deal to Parliament.
Yeah.
So they can either vote and say, we're going to leave, and that either passes or fails. If it passes, no deal. It's more than likely to fail because Parliament is very rigged against the no deal. And then the options are second referendum or general election. And
so so if you're a new Tory, just moved into number 10, ordered your new oven, I'm going to keep going with the oven guy because I think it's great. You've ordered a new oven. Do you risk it all and have a general election and potentially lose your majority? Again, I mean, a wise woman once went on a walking holiday and thought, great idea to solidify my majority, and then kind of ruined it all, didn't she? So what do you do?
The problem with all of this, and the problem with kind of everyone seems to be, the elephant in the room, is that we've got till Halloween to sort this mess out. And all of that does not play into that timeline to rescue this. And again, Mrs. Merkel was saying, oh, give them a bit more time if they want it. She's on her way out, don't care. Macron doesn't want, he's playing much tougher game, saying it's the 31st of October and you're out on your ear, that's it. And I think next week, when they find out they've got so many anti-EU MEPs from this country in their parliament, they're going to want us out. They're not going to give us any more leeway.
Well, it will be leave or revoke then, won't it?
It will be, yeah.
It won't be
It will
no
be
more
no
time.
deal or revoke.
I mean, we talk about revoking. I mean, are we not running? Is the kind of the mandate and the legitimacy of that referendum not slightly running out? Because I had to throw some almond milk away the other day that I bought after the referendum that is out of date. So is not the result of the referendum slightly out of date now? It will be nearly 4 years since we voted. Like, do you not think we need a refresher to just check where we're all at?
I think Paul hinted at it earlier, the recent rally up in Pontefract at the Featherstone Social Club, the one noise that they were making was, we shouldn't touch a second referendum until the first one has been enacted, at least, and that why the democratic vote of the people was, we should leave, so let's get on with it.
But we have been trying to leave for us. I don't think, not through a lack of trying. We have been trying to leave.
There is an interesting point that we've already had a second referendum.
When was that?
The last one we had, because we had another one. The first one was in 1974. So the principle of having two referendums, or two referenda, is established. It's just the time frame in the middle that is the difference. Now, if you have a referendum 2 weeks after the one you didn't like, then I think we can all agree that is, unacceptable. But we do have.
But this is a significant passage of time.
I'm saying we do have a general election every 4 years. We think that's a significant amount of time and enough time for the landscape to have changed, for people's opinions to have changed. So the longer it goes on, the case for a second referendum actually does get stronger.
It becomes more compelling. It's less about thwarting democracy. It's more about just checking in, guys.
Yeah.
But to head back to the Remain candidate is in, and they have the 3 options. They go back to a second referendum. You then are left with what are the questions, which could take another 6 months to come to are you going to have the Lib Dem Vince Cable option of 3 questions, which doesn't make any sense because you can't really reach a decision one way or the other. If someone turns around and gets 38%, is that then the democratic will of the people? And Brexiteers would turn around and say, hang on,
First, we'd have to agree on the wording of the referendum, and that will probably take another 4 years.
Yeah, I don't think it's not as simple as let's have a second referendum. It is, what is the wording, which they will not be able to agree on, and what, if any, if they are behind it, what impact has Farage and the Brexit Party had, because they could theoretically be campaigning in the EU for a no deal.
What we need is a referendum on the wording of the words for the referendum, really.
It's a slippery slope.
That will be the democratic way forward, I think.
Oh gosh, what a confusing timeline. We need one of those GCSE rulers. Okay, we've got PMQs in an hour and a bit. Are they going to talk about
Whether
it?
they'll mention the B word is a moot point. They seem to have the last two have been desperately quiet on the only issue that anyone cares about, on the only issue that matters.
They're more likely to mention the Jeremy Kyle show.
Not
TV.
the Jeremy Corbyn show.
Very funny this week, Paul. That week off really, you benefited from that, actually. Okay, so we don't think we're going to mention it. What will have happened this time next week?
We'll be champing at the bit to get to those polling booths, won't we?
We will. We'll be a day away.
We will be, but a day away. Me, I don't know. I might just go for giggles. But
what?
It's just not a proper election, is it? There's nothing... We've got how many weeks by the time they sit? And there's more. It's not just hilariously weird. This election is costing somewhere between 100 million and 120 million pounds of our money. Now, quick calculation, that runs to about 200 or 250 nurses or police officers or soldiers for life. That's not just a newspaper quick calculation. That is how much you would pay 200 to 250 nurses to work for the NHS for life. And that would be a much, much better use of public money than this ridiculous farce of an election.
Yeah. I mean...
Can't put a price on democracy, though.
Well, you can apparently. It's 120 million.
All that dogs at polling booth hashtag, when people bring their little pooches that's very cute.
And that's very cute. We shouldn't be here, that's the point. And everyone knows we shouldn't be here.
I think YouTube will agree that we shouldn't be here as well. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Thomas, where do you think we'll be?
I think we will have had probably another 4 Farage Brexit Party rallies.
With more Anne Widdecombe's getting
Widdecombe,
standing ovations. Good grief.
And they will turn around, and it is only going one way. The polls are only going one way. And I think very much we could be looking at a very smug Nigel Farage.
Super smug. Absolutely.
Who will just turn... He's declined any debates with
others. It's a coronation, isn't it?
Because he is playing from the Trump rule book.
Yeah.
And...
Yeah. Do we think he might stand in Peterborough?
No. They have a candidate.
Who is it?
Peterborough.
The secret millionaire. Mike Green.
Who is Mike Green?
Mike Green, best known as a secret millionaire. And he's a Peterborough boy. And he is a self-made millionaire. And if you remember why the Peterborough by-election is happening at all, and it's because the Labour Party candidate ended up in jail.
Yeah.
So you could forgive the good people of Peterborough for thinking the self-made millionaire who used to have a paper round in Peterborough is a better option than the Labour Party. Or any...
Is she definitely a crim? Can we call her a crim?
No, she's absolutely...
Okay.
She went to prison for lying for lying to the police.
Oh, don't do
it. These are not great.
Oh, it was a traffic offence, wasn't it? Oh, lying to the police about a traffic offence. Gosh, you could have been in prison for that, can you?
It was the perjury, wasn't it, that she went to prison for? That's a very,
is she the one who
very
compared
bad
herself to
thing
Jesus?
to do. Don't know.
It got a little...
Yeah, it got weird, didn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, right. So he won't stand, but the secret millionaire Mike Green, a Peterborough boy.
I mean, Peterborough is sort of a Labour stronghold, really.
Yeah.
But I'd say you could be forgiven if the good people of Peterborough decide that the self-made millionaire might be the choice this time.
They're just always the better option, aren't they?
And likely, if you had spoken to Farage a year ago about... We don't leave on the 29th of March. What would be your perfect set of circumstances to set up a new party and ride the crest of that? He will have May 23rd, he will have the vote. May 27th, we're likely to have results. Turn around and have his Peterborough by-election for which he can just suddenly shoehorn a candidate in.
A millionaire, no less.
Yeah. And then turn around, probably with the majority of MEPs in Parliament, and say, and I wouldn't put it past him to then be calling for a general election.
I think it's Farage's world, and we just live in it, don't we?
He has analysed, and he is playing...
Yeah. I have a final thought. At 5 p.m. today, the voting closes in the British Podcast Awards in the Listener's Choice category, of which we're a nominee.
Right.
So if you haven't already, please visit their website. Please go to vote. Please type in Brexit the Final Countdown and vote for us. You've got until 5 p.m.
Vote early, vote often.
Yeah.
As they say.
Yes,
Yeah.
This is a vote that we actually agree with. We definitely should
We
be
do,
there.
absolutely. This is, yes. Yeah.
No dogs in polling booths, though.
Yeah,
So please give us a vote, because we do work very hard on this. You would, you may not believe, but we do. There are a lot of notes on the table.
Takes a lot of work to look this
It
shambolic.
really does. I'm going to just say this. Paul told me that there aren't enough Spanks in the world for me to appear on camera. So yeah, I just thought I'd put that out there. So maybe just vote for me out of pity, if nothing else. Chaps, it was lovely having you in here.
Always a pleasure.
Lovely to be on YouTube. Thanks for all your hard work. Thank you for the flowchart. Thanks for the jokes. And thank you, producer Backward. Until next week.